What if you could be a part of reaching over 1 billion people with a translation of the Bible? That's the question I'm leading with for today's episode of the podcast. And I have with me to help answer that question, I have with me Ian Bultman, who is the, founder. What are the other titles? Founder, director, president, CEO,
everything
of of the Brinkman Adventures.
We're a small shop.
The Brinkman Adventures. And I know what you're thinking. You're trying to figure out, what is Brinkman Adventures and what does that have to do with reaching 1 billion people with the translation of the Bible? Well, I'm glad you asked. Actually, I want to start there. Brinkman Adventures, because I think the dots will connect themselves as we go through here, but talk a little bit first about Brinkman. Like if someone's listening that's just foreign language to them. Brinkman Adventures is what?
It's a radio show.
It's a radio show.
So Brinkman Adventures was actually founded by this church back in 2010. I was on staff here as a worship pastor, and the Lord gave this idea to make a radio drama that would inspire the next generation of missionaries. Yeah. And so we had no idea as a church how to make a radio drama. And but he brought
the vision came first.
It did
without knowing how.
Correct.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we had no desire to do it. I had never had dreamt about making a radio, but my kids were being influenced by it.
Okay.
And so the Lord brought everything that was needed together, the expertise, the finances. It was just an amazing 2 or 3 years of my life to watch him make this happen. And so that was back in 2010. And to date, we've done about 100 episodes.
100 episodes, radio dramas, 100 episodes.
Yeah.
And they're on radio stations all over
the world.
All over the world.
Yeah. Hundreds of radio stations.
Hundreds of radio stations.
Glory to God.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So if you're listening to this, just kind of bookmark that. Because how Brinkman ends up tying into this Bible translation will become very clear soon enough. So this Bible translation that has the potential to reach billion plus people and maybe beyond that in years to come is called the Easy English Bible Translation, right? So first of all, from your knowledge, what's the history of that translation?
Okay. So Brinkman I have to tell a story to tell them.
Yeah.
We do radio drama, so everything's a story, Brian.
Yeah. Tell a story.
Okay.
Great.
So Brinkman Adventures, every year we go to the National Religious Broadcast Convention, and normally it's in Nashville. And this is where producers come together, radio stations, TV stations, technical people all come together for a week. And it's an amazing time, great networking time. And we connect with radio stations there and networks that will play Brinkman Adventures. We also find actors there and talent and other producers. And so it's always a very profitable time for us. And about 3 years ago, we were at the convention and a fellow comes up to our booth, and we have a big backdrop with a missionary on the back of it. It's an adventure of some kids in the jungle. So there's this kid there, and he said, I know that kid. That's Asher Wilde from the Wilde Brothers. I flew him. I was a missionary pilot for Wycliffe, and I flew him over in Indonesia. So he sat down behind, right away we had this connection, sat down behind our booth, and I was playing Brinkman Adventures on a little speaker for people as they walked by. And he got this meter out on his phone, and he said, it's too fast. I said, what do you mean it's too fast? He said, well, they're speaking too fast. I said, oh, okay, tell me more. And he said, yeah, if an international person heard this, in another country who speaks English as a second language, they wouldn't understand this because it says here it's 160 words per minute, and you need to be down at 130 for those people. And I said, oh, okay. And then he told me who he was, what he was doing. He was there representing a company called Kalumi. They're these little solar MP3 digital players. And he was putting the Bible on these players and taking them all over the world. Huh. And he had discovered, by the time he came to my booth that day, that internationals, when they heard an English version of the Bible on this player, they couldn't understand it. He told me a story about how he was in the mountains one day with a guy, and he showed it to this young man who spoke really good English. And when the kid heard the Bible, his face fell. And Clive said, "What's the problem?" And he said, "It's because I don't understand." He couldn't understand it. It was too fast for him. And so that put Clive on this journey, this orality journey. And I need to back up and tell another little story. So Clive flew missionaries in who were translating the Bible all over the world, and he was working in Indonesia. So he was a part of these big Bible release parties, right? They would spend years translating, and then they'd bring the new translation in and have a big party. You've seen some of these on the internet. And then they would print a whole bunch of Bibles, and everybody would get a copy of the Bible in the village. Well, Clive saw that in some cases these Bibles weren't being used because the people didn't learn the language. They didn't know how to read. They could speak it, but they couldn't read it. And so you have 1 or 2 or 3 people in the village who can read this new language that was developed for the translation, but nobody else can. And so the Bibles are just being unused, and it just broke his heart. What do you do with them? You can't destroy them. They're Bibles. And Clive realized that for a lot of cultures, they're oral cultures. They need to hear it, and they're never going to read it.
Yeah.
And so that sent him on a journey. He left flying and he got a master's in orality and became passionate about bringing the word of God to people where they can listen to it. So that's why he was at the NRB. He had discovered Kalumi, this company, and was working with them, just volunteering his time for them to try to get the Bible around the world in these people's languages. But there wasn't a version of English that he could put on there that could be used by internationals. Why? It's never been done. No one has ever made, there's a couple that have been done. I shouldn't say never. There's a couple, but they haven't been recorded slowly enough. So no one's made a slow, deliberate audio version of these Bibles. And 2, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So he wanted to find a version that he could record that would be, he could give away, that didn't have royalties attached to it and copyrights attached to it. And so he was looking at the International Children's Version and the ASV version, which are both public domain. And he told me, I have a dream to make this, to make this happen, to make a version of the Bible. It'd be the most kind thing we could do for this 1 billion people around the world for multiple reasons, not just for the players, but for instance, what if a radio station in Kenya wants to do a Bible study, a pastor in Kenya, and he knows that all the surrounding countries are going to hear the broadcast, but they don't understand that language. Yeah. So they use English, right? When they do the broadcast in English, they need a good Bible version to use for that so that it can be understood. So that's one reason why. Another reason why. Also translation. Doing a easy version of the Bible makes it easier to translate into other languages. It's a tool that the Bible translators use. So anyway, Clive decided he was going to make this happen. In Brinkman Adventures, our team said, we want to be a part of that. We would love to help. If this is a royalty-free project, I would love to put that version of the Bible on the players with our product, with our stories on it also. Yeah. Because right now I distribute players with our stories on them, but I have to pay every time I put a Bible on.
So what was Clive's relationship then to the Easy English Translation itself?
Okay,
did he do that?
So no,
or did that exist previous to?
So I'll get back to the story. So when we told Clive that we would help him, we started looking for a version, and like I said, we looked at the ASV, we looked at the International Children's, and one day he called me. I still remember. I was walking in the front yard. He said, "Ian, I found the version. It's called the Easy English Bible." And this, I think, is perfect. It was made specifically for ESL people, English as a second language people. They've been working on it for 30 years, and they're just finishing it now. It's on the Bible app, and I think we can get public domain, like we can give it away. And so I'm going to make a presentation and ask if I could record it, because no one's recorded it yet. It's on the Bible app,
Yeah.
but there's no recording. And of all people to listen to the Bible, it's these people, right?
Right.
And so Clive said, I'm going to make a presentation, and I'd like to use Brinkman Adventures in that presentation and say, you're going to help us make it sound good. I'll be the voice and record it. You're going to produce it. And so I said, great, do it. So he made the presentation. This group that is doing it is World Assist. They're based out of the UK. They're connected to Wycliffe. Okay. And he had a Zoom meeting with them, and sold himself. And when he got done, they said, Clive, do you know how the Easy English got started? And he said, no, I just discovered you 3 months ago. Tell me. They said, well, 30 years ago in Africa, there was a missionary, and some pastors, local pastors, came to the missionary and said, could you make this commentary easy for us to understand, this English commentary? So the missionary went to the Wycliffe people and asked, and Wycliffe came back and said, no, because we've never done an easy version of the Bible. So why would we do an easy version of Matthew Henry's commentary or whatever it was?
Right.
And so the missionary said, well, why don't you go back and do the Bible? And they thought, that's a novel idea. Huh. So they did Psalm 100, and they gave it to the missionary, and the missionary gave it to these pastors, and they were like, hallelujah, do the whole Bible that way. We love this. It's amazing. So they started, and that was 30 years ago, Clive, and we're just finishing it now. Clive said, that's amazing. And they said, no, Clive, there's more to the story. Okay, what is it? Do you know who that missionary was that inspired the Easy English? And Clive said, no, I just discovered you 3 months ago. Who? It was your own mother. Clive I think he was flying Learjets at the time, flying the 1% around in these amazing jets. Yeah. And this is before he became a missionary pilot. Yeah. And his mom was the missionary that these pastors came to. Wow. And he had no idea. And they said, of course, Clive, you have our permission to be the voice of the Easy English.
Wow.
So when I heard that, I'm like, we're in.
Yeah.
We're in.
So that then weds, you've got an Easy English Bible in written form, which is now married to a guy who's been studying orality, and the importance of the oral, passing along information through oral tradition, like so many cultures, including the Bible. I mean, the Bible came from that tradition. Needing an easy to hear, to listen, but not having one. And Brinkman comes along and is positioned, because that's the world you live in, to do this.
Correct.
So when did you start working?
This was 3 years ago. I met Clive, and it's been kind of a slow process. When you do a version like this, it's longer. And so to do an audio version of the Bible, I think I've heard $200,000, between $100,000 and $200,000 to just record that, like in the studio, and pay the actors and everything. Yeah. And Clive is volunteering his time, and a lot of our work has been volunteered too on our end. And so it's been slow, and we've been kind of getting our sea legs, figuring out how to exactly do this. And but we started, I think, 3 years ago. And yesterday I was in the studio working with Jim Reith, who produced the first 4 seasons of Brinkman Adventures. He's retired now, but is also a worship pastor at another church. And he's working on 2 Corinthians 3 right now.
2 Corinthians 3.
Today, I think he's going to be on 2 Corinthians 3. And it's amazing to sit there and hear. When I hear this version, it's like hearing the Bible for the first time. It's really good.
Right. And one of the things that makes it easy is its limited vocabulary.
Right.
Right. Because that's part of the issue.
Right.
For people who speak English as a second language, if the vocabulary is too expansive, it can go over their heads. Right. What's the vocabulary? I mean, was there a... So
they did a study, and they looked at the most used words in the Bible, and they distilled it down to 1,000 words. And so there's 1,000 words that are common words that are most... Those are the words they draw on as much as they can. There's 600 more words that are in a glossary, and they're notated. So if they have to use those 600 words, they will, and they'll send the reader to the glossary.
Okay.
Sentences are short. They're 20 words or less.
Interesting.
There's no rhetorical questions.
Yeah.
You think I'm rich? I mean, none of that.
Right.
There's no idiomatic phrases like you hit the nail on the head.
Right.
Even if the Bible uses that, they'll describe that. What else do they have? Shorter sentences. I think it's 20 words. There's no passive voice, so they try to limit passive voice.
Right. So as these are finished, you talked about the YouVersion Bible app. Are they going to be uploaded to the web or whatever?
Yeah. So as we complete them, they go up. So right now, I think Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are up on the Bible app.
Yeah.
So we have Romans. Another reason why it's hard for why we're kind of stuck at the moment. Clive is traveling, so he's an international missionary. He's over. I think he's in Ireland right now, or maybe he's in South Africa. He's meeting with the Kalumi people, I think, soon. But so he's traveling a lot, and so when there's a mistake in the text, we proof it. We're the final proof, one of the final proofs. And as we find a word switched around, we try to fix it. And if we can't, Clive has to re-record it. And that's a challenge to try to get it to sound right. And so he has to find a studio and sit down. And so we're waiting on Romans right now. I think we have 2 or 3 words that are missing in Romans. 1 Corinthians is done except for 2 words that are flipped around. And we tried to move them, but it sounded edited.
You know, I've been in Ian's studio just to very quickly glimpse at the work that's involved in doing this and be astonished at what level of care is going into the recording of the Easy English Bible. It really is remarkable. First-rate folks are working on this, and they're doing so with precision that is pretty inspiring. So what are the goal is what? Obviously the first goal is the New Testament.
The whole Bible.
The whole Bible.
We want to do the whole Bible. Yeah. You know, Clive recently went to a symposium with a bunch of Bible people. And they were all excited about AI and how AI is going to replace the human voice. And we won't need to spend $100,000 or $200,000. We can just get AI to do it.
Yeah.
And Clive came to me and he said, we may be the very last audio Bible recorded with the human voice, but he's committed to not using any AI. He said of all pieces of literature that should be read by a human with a spirit, it should be the Bible.
Right. Yeah, that's applaudable, you know. And that'll give some reassurance, I think, to those who listen to it.
Yeah. Realize
they're being talked to by a real human who loves Jesus.
Yeah.
Not a machine that has affections that are detached from the text. All right, so you got 1 billion plus people around the world who speak English as a second language. Is that growing? Is there going to be more than that?
I think they're anticipating half of the world, if not already. I read that in 2004, they were estimating half of the world would either speak it or be learning it, trying to speak it.
Yeah.
And so it's going up.
Huh. Is that what your draw was to this?
Well, I'm Dutch, and so Dutch people like free things. And so I like to be able to get a free version that I can put on my player and give away. That was, to be completely honest, that was the first thing. Before I even knew what the Easy English was, I thought, here's a way to get our own version that we recorded on our players that I can give away, because I want to give the Bible away. Then I started learning about the Easy English, and I fell in love with it. I use it now. We have our family devotion time, and there's times I'm like, I don't understand it. What does the Easy English say? And sure enough, there it is.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're proofing it now. Jim and I are we'll be proofing 2 Corinthians in a month. And when we do that, it's such an amazing experience because I'm hearing this read for the first time. And it's like a fresh version. And there's verses that have stumped me. I'm 50-some years old, and I still get stumped, and I hear it the way the Easy English says it, and it's like, well, that's what that means.
So the Kalumi players, how do they fit into this? Maybe describe a little bit how they work, because I know the average person may think, all right, so the person out there in Africa who speaks English as a second language, they all have smartphones. Are they all getting the YouVersion app? I mean, in my mind, probably a lot of people do, more than we maybe realize. But for that group of people out there that don't have internet, don't have apps on their smartphones, but speak English as a second language. How are we getting this into their hands?
Right. Yeah. With Elon Musk's Starlink, I think everybody will have access to the internet, right?
Yeah.
Pretty soon. But, yeah, so the Kalumi players, they make different sizes. I like the louder one. They say that it can address 20 people. So you can put that in a room and a whole house church can actually hear it, which is pretty cool. My kids use these players to listen to their audio dramas. They have Adventures in Odyssey and Brinkman Adventures and today they're listening to Lord of the Rings or Hobbit on their little player. There's no Bluetooth on them, no Wi-Fi. They're just very simple. There's no LCD on them. They're just buttons. So you have to navigate just with buttons. They're really easy to learn. I mean, you can find a verse in the Bible pretty quickly with just the few buttons that it has. How are they getting to people? So there's missionaries who bring them over. They'll smuggle them into closed countries in their suitcases. Some really cool stories.
So it's a common tool right now.
Oh, it is totally.
In the world of missions. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. We tell a Brinkman Adventure story about how. So I met with there's another organization called Mega Voice that's doing the same thing as Kalumi. They've been around a little bit longer. They'll drop them into villages with a parachute and so I asked one of the directors of Mega Voice, any cool stories for the Brinkman Adventures? And he told me one, which we put in there. He said that this man was speaking at a conference in Holland, I think, and a Dutchman came up and said, I got to tell you this story. I'm a businessman, and somebody asked me to deliver Mega Voices to a closed country. And so I said, okay, that sounds kind of fun and exciting. So he gave me a box to put in my suitcase. And he told me the person is not expecting it, but just tell them what you have and they'll take it. They'll use it. And so he got the address. He knocked at the door. Man opened the door and he said what he had. He said, get in here. And he drug him in the house. And this big, tall Dutchman and he said, come in, you have to see this. Come into my kitchen. He went into the kitchen and there were two men sitting there. They looked like Taliban. Oh. And he said, tell this Dutchman what you told me. And they said, that one saw an angel and told us to come to this address to get an audio Bible. And so we did. And the man who had answered the door said, it's true. They knocked at the door. I thought that they were the police. I didn't want to let them in, but they were insistent. So they've been waiting for a day.
Waiting for a day?
Waiting for a day for you. So God is using this, obviously. And there's other stories like that.
Wow, that is so cool. This is an amazing thing. You think about the evolution of communication, how things have changed over the years with communication. The idea that we could get God's word into this many ears using these means is really, really cool.
It's cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah. These things have little solar things on them too, so they can, and a light. So in the village they can use them and as a flashlight, and they can charge their phones if they have a phone with a little solar panel on them. Yeah. Super cool.
So if people want to find out, people are listening to this, people want to find out more about the project or the Easy English Bible, or what would you suggest to them?
Go to easyenglish.org.
Okay.
And you can listen to, they have their own little player up there. And I think Clive has uploaded on a couple of the books already. And you can also, if you want to know more about the Kalumi players, you can go to Kalumi.
Okay. How do you spell that?
Kulumi. Just type Kalumi and they'll come up on the internet.
Yeah.
I think they're produced by Hope International Ministry. And that's a cool story, too. They were developed by a missionary couple, a South African and a Chinese woman, I understand. And they got married, and both engineers, and they realized the need for this. So they made this resilient little thing that can take a beating, made for overseas. And God is using it in a really cool way.
If people want to contribute financially to the creation of the audio version of the Easy English Bible, how would they do that?
Yeah, so Brinkman Adventures, we're a nonprofit, and so they can look up Brinkman Adventures, and while they're there, maybe get an audio drama or two.
Yeah.
But you can donate to that ministry. You can also you can probably reach out to Hope International because I'm sorry, not Hope International. That's the Clumy. Reach out to easyenglish.org because the work there is ongoing and the translation, and they're refining it, and they're actually trying to use a little larger vocabulary.
Okay.
And so I think they're always working on this, and there's a lot of volunteer. It's all volunteer, but there's missionaries that are involved there too, and they could probably use some support as well.
Yeah. That's awesome. Ian, thanks for being here. Thanks for going into the details of this. And if you're part of Alliance Bible Church and you heard about this on a Sunday morning, you gave to this, thank you for doing that. This really is an exciting thing for us to be a part of. And the fact that the epicenter of this thing is taking place in our own backyard is pretty cool.
It's amazing. And pray for us too. You can pray for Jim, who's doing the lion's share right now of editing. It's a lot of tedious work. And pray for Clive, who's recording this, that God keeps him in good health, and that he is able to get the whole Bible done, because we're excited about this. We want to get the whole thing done before he returns.
Yes, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Ian, thanks for being here.
You bet.
And thanks for tuning into the Brian Naisberg Podcast, special edition of the Brian Naisberg Podcast, talking about reaching over 1 billion people with an audio version of the Bible. Boy, that is great stuff.
Thank you, Alliance Bible Church.